podcast on everything that's happening around the COVID vaccine. I'm Shireen Bhan. Dr. Reddy's laboratories has started phase 2 and 3 clinical trials for Russia's Sputnik vaccine in India. The pharma major will conduct multi-center randomized control study to assess the safety and efficacy of the vaccine. The trials will involve 1,600 volunteers across 9 sites in India, of which 100 subjects will be part of phase 2, 1,500 will be part of phase 3 clinical trials. Joining me now to take this conversation forward is Dmitriev, the CEO of the Russian Direct Investment Fund. Mr. Dmitriev, many thanks for joining us here on CNBC-TV18. We've just got the information from Dr. Reddy's and RDIF that you will be commencing phase 2 and phase 3 clinical trials for the Sputnik vaccine in India. What's the broad timeline that you're working with?
Well, first of all, we are very excited about this, and it's another step in the great Russian-Indian partnership we have on Sputnik V vaccine. In many ways, it's actually a Russian-Indian vaccine, because not only do we do clinical trials in India, but also most of the manufacturing of the vaccine will be done in India. So we are starting now. We expect and we hope for emergency approval of the vaccine as early as January in India. And we believe that this will be based on not only Indian trials that we are doing right now, but also on the Russian trials of 40,000 volunteers that we expect to complete in December. So January is the time frame that we hope to work with your regulator on emergency approval in India.
Okay, so that's important. You're saying that you expect to file your application for emergency use authorization in India in January. You've been in touch with regulators in India. What's the response been like from the regulator so far?
Well, you have a very professional regulator, and they've been working very closely with us as well as government of India. And for example, for clinical trials, we are using some of the biotech labs of the government of India. So of course, you have very professional regulators. They already started reviewing some of the Russian data. They agreed to look at more of the Russian data, and will also be providing data from clinical trials in UAE and some other countries where we have phase 3 ongoing clinical trials. So far, very positive response from your regulator. Of course, they're very focused on safety. They're very focused on security of Indian people. And we are working very closely with them to ensure the safety of clinical trials and to ensure that all of the boxes are checked for India with the Sputnik V vaccine.
Mr. Dmitriev, the Prime Minister has also met with various vaccine manufacturers and had conversations with RDIF and Dr. Reddy's as well. Where do things currently stand as far as possible pricing is concerned and a purchase agreement with the Indian government? Has there been any conversation on bringing down costs further? Because you've priced for your vaccine for Sputnik V, it's priced at about $10 per dose. So has there been any conversation with the Indian government so far on pricing as well as a purchase agreement?
Well, we will have the same pricing globally, and it will be below $10 per shot. And we believe it's very attractive pricing because basically we have several important elements of the vaccine. So first of all, we showed efficacy of more than 90%. And I think that's very important, as some other vaccines have showed similar efficacy, but some have showed efficacy much lower, 62%, 70% as an example. Secondly, our vaccine can be stored at +2, +8 temperature. So basically, we believe that it's a combination of very attractive pricing, good storage conditions, very high efficacy, and of course, the safety track record of human adenoviral vector that has been studied for decades. So we will have the same pricing globally, and we basically have very good discussions with Indian government on having our vaccine available in India as early as in January.
You said that you're likely to price it below $10 globally. How much lower than $10 per dose is it likely to be?
Well, I think we'll start with just a little bit below $10 a dose, but hopefully over time, as we produce more volume, we can reduce pricing even more. But for now, again, we are 2-3 times lower in price versus American vaccines, Moderna and Pfizer, that have shown similar level of efficacy. So definitely, we believe we focused on the right technology, which is human adenoviral technology, which is 2-3 times cheaper than mRNA technology, and we believe that that is a very important and makes vaccine quite affordable.
Okay, so slightly below 10 could mean 9, could mean 8. When do you believe that you'll have clarity on that? Or could it even mean 7?
Well, we'll get back to you, but for now it's slightly below 10. And once again, as I showed, very important, it's a combination of price +2 +8 temperatures that makes distribution much easier, high level of efficacy and safety of human adenoviral vector. And we will try to reduce pricing as much as possible when we produce mass scale vaccine, including using our facilities with 4 manufacturing partners that we have secured in India. And once again, India has great pharma manufacturing. We are very impressed by Make in India program by Prime Minister Modi and just generally your great pharma industry that you've been able to build.
I just wanted to get a clarification as far as the cold chain infrastructure that will be required for the Sputnik V vaccine. You said 2 degrees to 8 degrees. Is that the kind of temperature requirement?
Yes, so we have 2 forms of the vaccine. One requires -18. And we just finally achieved mass scale production of another form that can be stored at +2 +8 temperature. It's called lyophilized form, the dry form. So basically, this is a form that we'll focus on to distribute in India and in other markets. So this, of course, is much better than to try to distribute the vaccines that need -70 temperature. Because if you need -70, you basically are not only talking about, lots of storage and cold storage, but also special kind of glass you need to use. So we really thought of affordable vaccine that's easy to distribute, that's effective, and that is safe. And that is the combination of those 4 factors that is Sputnik V, and that makes it, we believe, a very attractive, important vaccine.
Before I get to the manufacturing side of it, from a requirement from the regulator's perspective, are there any specific requirements that the Indian regulator has sought from you for the Sputnik V vaccine?
Well, I think India is the only country that also requested this combined phase 2-3, because we already have phase 3 going on, obviously, in Russia, Belarus, Venezuela, UAE. And the reason why your regulator asked for this is because they wanted to see that some of the Indian population is included also in very short phase 2 steps. So we agreed to that, and we see that Indian regulator is very much focused on quality and on safety. So we also appreciate that they're looking a lot at Russian data, and they understand that we have lots of data coming from Russia, but also from UAE and other countries as well, that they will also be able to look at and use it for their decisions.
Yes, so the Indian regulator insisted on having data from India, so that India bridge trial, which is currently underway, phase 2 and phase 3, now kicking off here for your vaccine. Let's now talk about what's happening on the manufacturing side. You have also tied up with Hetero. What is the production plan? What is the manufacturing plan?
So we have actually already 4 production partners in India, and we'll announce their names maybe close to the end of December, maybe in January. But India will be able to produce around 300 million doses of vaccine for us next year, and we are working to increase that production. We can also supply vaccine to India from some of the other markets. So basically, we can start supplying vaccine already in January to India if regulator makes this decision, if regulator approves the vaccine. And of course, we'll scale up to have, really tens of millions of doses manufactured starting from February and March. So already technology transfer process is happening to 4 Indian manufacturers. They have received our vaccines. They are basically scaling it up. So we already started this technology transfer process to India already a month ago to one of the companies, and they are scaling it up very successfully. And we are very pleased with our partnership on manufacturing in India.
So when you say that you will be able to have 300 million doses of the vaccine available next year, is this the global procurement that we're talking about, or only the 4 partners in India that will supply these doses?
Yeah, so we believe that 300 million doses will be provided just by Indian partners. Our global capacity production right now is 500 million doses next year, but we actually have very productive dialogue, and we may have an announcement in January on significant increase in that capacity. But for now, this is what we can do. We believe it's very important to have different vaccines for each country in the portfolio. So we offer human adenoviral vector platforms that has been studied for decades. There are other platforms, and we believe that all vaccines are important. We really appreciate, success of Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca, others that they've had, and those vaccines are needed for different countries around the world. And we actually see lots of interest to actually start using some of the components of our vaccine combined with vaccine of other manufacturers. And we see that people recognize that having two different shots for two different vectors for two different shots in the vaccine is one of the key benefits of the platforms that we've built. So we may see in the future even some collaboration on vaccines between different vaccine manufacturers, which I think is great for the world.
I just wanted to pick up on that point that you brought up about collaboration. You have previously talked about collaborating with the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine because it's on the same adenovector platform. Where are those talks? And when you talk about collaboration, that perhaps one dose, are you suggesting that one dose could be of a different vaccine manufacturer and one dose could be from yours, but on the vaccines that are on the same platform, I would imagine?
Yeah, so first of all, one of our portfolio companies is already manufacturing AstraZeneca vaccine in Russia, and they are working on this. Secondly, we did actually offer through Twitter to AstraZeneca and to other vaccines this idea that they can take one of our human adenoviral vector and think of combining with their vaccines to boost efficacy. Because we believe if you do two shots with the same vector, second shot becomes less efficient. But if you use two different vectors, you basically make second shot very effective. And this is something that we've proposed, and we'll be seeing how this discussion develops. But generally, we believe in really strong partnership between vaccine manufacturers in the world, because frankly, there is so much demand for different vaccines. If you look at all of the ability and capacity to produce vaccine by all of the manufacturers, there will still be shortage. So we really believe in cooperation between vaccine manufacturers and in joint work, even to make vaccines, compatible from the vaccination perspective, etc.
So since you talked about collaboration and you talked about reaching out to Oxford AstraZeneca on Twitter, has the dialogue happened outside of Twitter as well with them, or have things not moved any further beyond social media?
Well, we'll keep you posted. All I can say is that once again, today we'll be speaking to United Nations. We believe that only by working together can we overcome this pandemic. And I think there will be the very important question of revaccinations. So, for example, if you get vaccinated with one vaccine, can you get revaccinated next year with another vaccine? So I think sooner or later, vaccine manufacturers will start talking to each other about ensuring compatibility of different vaccines. And I think this will lead to this more vaccine collaboration age, which is, I think, very important and will be very, very productive.
So, Mr. Dimitrov, before I let you go, let me ask you, has there been any dialogue with the Indian government on the quantum that they may want to purchase from you once, of course, the regulatory approvals are in place? You talked about being able to produce 300 million doses in India by next year. Is that the quantum that has been discussed with the Indian government?
Well, first of all, we already have reached an agreement with Dr. Reddy to distribute 100 million doses. And of course, this is subject to regulatory approval. And then we're in discussions with Indian government on very significant also volumes and amounts. I think all of it is obviously subject to regulatory approval. So we continue to have those discussions and we'll keep you posted. I think in January, we will have more clear understanding on the volumes that we will supply to India as well as to other countries. India is really our closest partner, and we're also discussing that a large part of what is being produced in India will be supplied to the Indian market. but some part that is being manufactured in India will also be used to serve other markets in Latin America, in other countries as well.
A quick final question on the Dr. Reddy's distribution agreement for 100 million doses. I would imagine that this is largely going to be for the private market. Will the pricing remain the same at just under $10?
Well, we expect the pricing to be the same. We want pricing to basically be attractive. And as I said, it's a combination of pricing, ease of distribution, efficacy, and safety. So we really focused on having all those 4 features together, because you could have, cheaper price, but have less efficacy or have less safety. And we basically focused on the great package. So we expect the pricing to be basically similar with Dr. Reddy. And Dr. Reddy is really great partners, incredibly professional. And we see also possibility to cooperate with Dr. Reddy, not only in India, but also in other markets where they have their distribution capability, and they've proven to be very solid, very good partner to us.
Yes, you would like to ink distribution partnerships with Dr. Reddy's for the overseas markets where the company has a presence. Mr. Kirill Dimitrov, many thanks for joining us here with the latest on where things stand as far as the Sputnik V vaccine is concerned. Hoping to apply for emergency authorization in January. Remember, phase 2, phase 3 clinical trials currently underway, just have started in India. It's time for us to head into a break, but up next, the UK has authorized Pfizer and BioNTech's COVID-19 vaccine. The United Kingdom has authorized Pfizer and BioNTech's COVID-19 vaccine, becoming the first country in the world to approve that particular vaccine for human use. Pfizer has claimed 95% efficacy of the vaccine. The American drug maker has also applied for emergency authorization of the vaccine in the US. It did so in November, but it's yet to receive the clearance. The UK government has said it is ready to vaccinate people starting next week. Juliana Teitelbaum joins us now from London with more. Juliana, the UK Health Secretary saying that the immunization program will launch next week.
So the UK has become the first government in the world to approve this Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine. They have agreed to supply the UK with 40 million doses throughout this year and next year. So it's going to come in stages, and that's to ensure an equitable allocation of vaccines across different geographies. Of course, many governments around the world have already signed contracts with Pfizer and BioNTech for these vaccine doses. The first doses are expected to arrive in the coming days, with complete fulfillment expected next year. Now, in terms of the actual distribution, who's going to get the vaccines and how, the Joint Committee on Vaccinations and Immunizations here in the UK is due to publish their exact guidance later today, but it is expected to include care home residents, healthcare workers, the elderly, and clinically extremely vulnerable populations. The vaccination program is going to be the largest scale campaign in the country's history. That's according to the chief executive of the NHS in England, who was providing some comments earlier this morning. Also, the UK Health Secretary, Matt Hancock, was on our sister channel, Sky News, earlier this morning, talking about there being 3 modes of delivery. These won't come as any surprise to anyone. The first will be the hospitals themselves. We'll also have vaccination centers. These are big centers where people can go and get vaccinated, and he says they're being set up now. And then lastly will be community rollout, which includes GPs and pharmacists. Now, given the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine requires storage at -70 degrees Celsius, the actual operational rollout is quite complicated. A lot of really stringent conditions need to be met. So Matt Hancock did make an allusion to AstraZeneca, saying if that vaccine is approved, it's going to be operationally easier to roll out, but they will have these different modes of dissemination in place already, so that will be helpful. And then in terms of other regions for the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine, the companies have said the US FDA and EU EMA decisions are expected in December. And yesterday we did hear from the US CDC. A panel voted 13-1 to give healthcare and the long-term care facility residents the first vaccine doses in the United States once a vaccine is approved there.
Thanks very much, Juliana. So UK becoming the first country to authorize the emergency use of Pfizer's vaccine. Let me go across to my colleague Archana Shukla to understand what this means for India, if anything at all. Archana, the Pfizer vaccine is not being tested in India yet, and the biggest issue is going to be the cold storage requirement. -70, we cannot do.
Well, absolutely. While the world is moving fast on the COVID-19 vaccine, for India, it will still be a little more wait. Multiple reasons why Pfizer vaccine is unlikely to be available in India for long. First, certainly is the fact that Pfizer has not applied for or done any bridge clinical trials in India. Now, the Indian regulator has asked for all vaccines being developed globally to be tested on Indian population before applying for regulatory approvals, along with the global trials and regulatory data that they would assess. Now, besides the tough storage transport requirement for Pfizer vaccine makes it a difficult one for mass immunization programs for a country like India. Pfizer's vaccine needs ultra cold chain of above -70 degrees, which is lacking in India for now. A third deterrent for now is also the pricing. With nearly $20 per dose, it is costlier than the other vaccines which are under consideration. Remember, Pfizer is again a 2-dose vaccine. But even if all of these were to be cleared up, all of these issues, Pfizer for now has all its existing capacities committed for supplies to the developed world. Till now, there has been no tie-up with any Indian manufacturer as well for India. The government is also prioritizing vaccines which are undergoing clinical trials in India. And Vinod Paul, who's heading the National Task Force and is also heading the team, the committee that's looking into the vaccine supply chain, also told CNBC-TV18 in a recent interview that we must expect at least one vaccine in early 2021. And while multiple vaccines are in the pipeline, optimistically, the government is looking at Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine, which Serum is concluding phase 3 trials for in India, expected to make regulatory submissions in the next 2 weeks, followed by Bharat Biotech's Covaxin in third phase trials right now, and the Russian Sputnik V vaccine that has just begun phase 2 and 3 trials in India. So a little more wait for a vaccine to come to India. Back to you.
All right, Archana, many thanks for joining us. With that, it is time for us to wrap up this special broadcast. Thanks for watching. Do stay tuned to CNBC-TV18. The news will continue.